Hello, this is Dr. N.K. Sharma. So again, we are continuing the discussion of principles of inheritance of variation, class 12th NCERT, chapter number 5. And in this video, you will understand about what is given in 5.1 in your NCERT textbook. So this is Mendel's law of inheritance. So I have introduced in the last video, we have understood what exactly is meant by genetics, what is inheritance, what is variation. We know that people were aware of this, but Mendel was the person who actually formalized the branch by deducing some laws by his careful observations on working on a plant. I told you garden pea, what is called as Pisum sativum. So let us again look at the father of genetics. This is Gregor Johann Mendel. I told you about him that he was an Austrian monk, a very scientific temperament, strong person, the person who was very well read himself and actually worked under some very important scientists in physics, chemistry, in maths as well as statistics. So he was very strong. All these things were very important pluses that were present in Gregor Johann Mendel, and I told you that he worked for 7 years in his monastery, in his garden, cultivating Pisum sativum, and the time period was 1856 to 1863. That was the question I told you had come in NEET entrance exam as well. So this is what we know. So now we know what exactly is genetics. We know what we will be studying in classical genetics. We know about this person, Gregor Johann Mendel, and now let us look forward to the experiments that were conducted by Mendel that led to the establishment of genetics as an important discipline of biology. So reminding you again, this is an important question, 1856 to 63. The second important question would be the work on garden pea plant, and we are calling this plant as Pisum sativum. So this is a common garden pea plant, and he worked on Pisum sativum. Now there are some very important questions that we will discuss in this video. Number one, why Pisum sativum? So the answer is that it is basically domain of the experimenter. He is the person who can actually choose what material he wants to work upon. Who are we to say? So that means it was basically the wish of Mendel that actually he selected garden pea plant. That was very convenient because he was already growing the plant in his own monastery, in his garden. They were very easily available. He was very familiar with them. And obviously, if I am doing an experiment in science, so I will use a material that I am comfortable working with. Now, a very important question would be that what was the advantage of choosing garden pea plant? Now, this is the question that we are entitled to ask. So we cannot say that why only Pisum sativum. The answer is that he is the person who is doing it. Let him select whatever he wants. You can question that what were the advantages of selecting Pisum sativum. I hope you are understanding the nuance that I am trying to differentiate between the two questions. So that means now the question is, what were the advantages of selecting garden pea plant that was selected by Mendel for his hybridization experiments? So this is what we will be focusing upon. Let me tell you very important thing here. Again, I am saying that Mendel was not the first person. Mendel was not the first person who tried to analyze the phenomena that were occurring behind the inheritance patterns in sexually reproducing organism. This was known to people long before Mendel as well. Mendel was not the first scientist who worked on garden pea plant. So there were many other scientists, for example, Knight and Gauss. So they were the scientists who actually worked on the same plant. So there is another question that comes to our mind, that why Mendel actually became successful, the other scientists did not. So this is a separate question. So there are two questions that I am actually trying to tell you. One is, what were the advantages of using the Pisum sativum plant? The second question that I am trying to understand is that why Mendel got successful and not others before him, though they worked on this very plant only. I told you about Knight and Gauss. So the answer to this question first would be that Mendel did a quantitative and a qualitative analysis as well of the results of the hybridization experiments that he got. So that means because he was well trained in maths, he was well trained in statistics, he could analyze quantitatively what exactly is happening. And again, because the results were repeating and they were repeating and repeating themselves again, and because he was keeping a very accurate record, and not only record, he was analyzing statistically the results that were of the experiments, he was able to see that there must be some principle governing behind the patterns of inheritance that he was observing in his experiments on Pisum sativum. So that is the reason why he was successful. Now let us come to the next question, that what was the advantage of choosing Pisum sativum. So answering this, let me start hypothetically. Let us say that he thought of working, say for example, a giant redwood tree. So why did he not take, say for example, giant redwood? So you know they are gymnosperms, very huge trees. You know about them. A very important one would be sequoia, and these type of this thing you must have read in your botany classes. They are immense trees. They are huge, and not only huge. The average lifespan of giant redwood would be anything between 500 to 700 years. Mind you, this may run much higher than this. I am giving you a average lifespan of a giant redwood. Now, if Mendel had started working on this, would it have been possible for him to get the result in his lifetime? He would have started the experiment, and fourth or fifth generation after him would have got the result. So that was actually not possible. That was the reason that he did not take some other plant. So the first advantage is pretty evident. So let me show you a very interesting slide again. Very interesting slide again, and then we will understand what we are saying. So you know from your botany classes that you can estimate the age of a tree by looking at what are called as the annual rings, and the science is called as dendrochronology. So if you see that this is the trunk of a tree that has been cut, and you may not be able to see, but there are some annual rings present here. And if we can show you that what exactly is written here, this is 550 tree began growing, and it is 1891 tree cut down. It has seen a lot of history. There is Second Crusade here, Joan of Arc, America discovered. This is a landing of pilgrims, Declaration of Independence, Battle of Waterloo, the American Civil War, and then the tree got cut down. Can you imagine what we are talking about? Can you understand the age of this particular tree? This is a very interesting thing to understand, that you cannot select a plant for experiments in which you want the results early. So a very important advantage because of what I have told you is straight away apparent to us. So Pisum sativum is an annual plant. So annual plant is a plant that actually completes its life cycle in one season, in one growing season. So that means from seed to again producing seed, it will be only one growing season. So this plant is an annual plant. So that means it was very easy and convenient and very rapid to actually get the results. So this was one big advantage of garden pea plant. Number two important advantage was obviously there was ease of availability. So the plants were very easily available. This is very simple to understand, because I will like to choose a common material. I know that other scientists will also like to repeat my experiments, and they should reach the same conclusion. Only then my results will be authenticated. So this was a fairly common plant. The life cycle was very short, and therefore it was easy to get the results. Now, very important to understand is that it had contrasting traits easily identifiable. You know the word contrast. So contrast is something which is opposite to each other. They are in stark difference from each other, and therefore they are easily identifiable. So it had contrasting traits of characters. Now this is a very, very important line that I will explain to you. So that means it has contrasting traits for the same character. Now these traits or characters were easily identifiable. So nothing complicated scientific approach was required to identify the characters that we are studying. They were easily identifiable to the naked eye as well. So actually he took 7 characters. Now first and foremost, let us understand in the beginning what exactly is a character. So for example, character would be height. So height of a plant is a character. Now this is very, very important to understand at the beginning of the chapter. So I am taking a character. The character is height of the plant. And what are the alternate forms of the character, which is height, becomes the trait. Now that means the traits would be that the plant may be tall or plant may be dwarf. Now understand this. If I am talking of tall, if I am talking of dwarf, still I am talking about height only, but I am talking about the contrasting forms of the same character. So one is tall, one is dwarf. It is easily identifiable by looking at them only. So this is what is meant by character, and this is what is meant by trait. So later on we will see that the term gene will actually be controlling the character, and the alternate forms of the gene, if you are aware from your lower classes, which are called as alleles will be responsible for formation of the alternate traits. So there will be an allele for tallness, there will be an allele for dwarfness. Both of them are actually signifying the character height, and therefore there will be a gene for height. So I hope this thing is absolutely clear, that what exactly is a character and what are the contrasting forms of the character, or the different morphological variations of the character, different easily identifiable characters of easily identifiable forms of the same character, which are called as trait. So now let us look at a very important figure, that what were the 7 characters and their odd contrasting traits that were chosen by Gregor Johann Mendel for his experiment. So as you can see, the first one is pretty evident. You can very easily see this is a tall plant and this is a dwarf plant. So we are talking of height only, but these are the 2 traits. Now look at this particular plant. So you are looking at axial and terminal flowers. So these are the axial flowers. You can see the flowering pattern. This is terminal. So again the position of the flower becomes the character, and the alternate traits would be axial and terminal. If you look at the pods, very easily identifiable, green and yellow. So this is pod color. So pod color is the character, and being green or yellow becomes the alternate traits, contrasting traits. Similarly, there is one more pod character. Whether they are inflated, you can see the boundaries, or they are pinched or constricted. So you can see the constrictions at the boundaries of this particular pod. So the shape of the pod, whether it is inflated or wrinkled, this is very easily understood. Now the color of the flowers. So color of the flowers, whether it is purple or white, again easily identifiable. You can see the seed color. So seed color you can see yellow and green. You can see another character, which is seed shape. They may be round or wrinkled. So these are the 7 characters. So if we look at the character, so we are looking at seed shape, we are looking at seed color, we are looking at flower color, we are looking at pod shape, we are looking at pod color, we are looking at the position of the flowers, and we are looking at the height of the plants. And now we can understand they were easily identifiable contrasting traits for the same character. So this is the table of your NCERT textbook, the table number 5.1, contrasting traits studied by Mendel in Pea Plant. So you can see in the first column is written characters, and the contrasting traits are given in the second column. Very frequently a simple question is actually asked from this particular concept in NEET entrance exam. So this will be easy. So this is the third very important crucial advantage of Pisum sativum. I hope you have understood. There is one more advantage. So let us rub them. So I hope you are making your notes on these concepts. Please understand, if you understand the topic, the paper become easy. The more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in war. So the time to work hard, actually I should say to work smart, is now. If you smartly work right now, you can change the result that will be coming after the NEET entrance exam. So please work smartly. Yes, obviously you require hard work, but you require smart work as well. So how do you differentiate between a hard work and a smart work? Smart work would be understanding what are the important topics, what can be actually neglected for the time being if it is consuming lot of time and is not worth a lot of marks in the entrance. So without a strategy, if you fail to plan, you are actually planning to fail. This is very important to understand. So therefore, again and again I am telling you that this question can come, this question can come, and this must tinker your mind. You must make notes, write in your notebook that this may be an important question. So we are looking at an important advantage of the Pisum sativum, the fourth one. This is very important to understand. To tell you about this advantage, let me tell you some important terms in botany. So there is a term which is called as a complete flower, and there is a term which is called as a perfect flower. Now let me explain to you. A perfect flower is one which is bisexual. That means it has both androecium and gynoecium. That means it has both male sex organs as well as female sex organs. So we are looking at a flower which has both androecium as well as gynoecium. So this type of flower is a perfect flower. Now you know that in addition to these two whorls, there are two accessory whorls as well. So these are the reproductive parts of the flower. They are actually located on the thalamus. They are arranged in whorls. This is absolutely basic botany that you are aware of. And the two accessory whorls that do not directly take part in the reproduction would be the sepals and the petals, the calyx and corolla. So if a flower has all four, then it is called as a complete flower. So this should be very simple. So we are looking at a complete flower. We say it has androecium, it has gynoecium, it has calyx, it has corolla, and it has calyx. That means it has sepals as well as petals. So it has all four whorls. Now which means that a complete flower will definitely be a perfect flower. So you can easily understand a complete flower will be perfect flower, but the reverse may not be true. So it is not necessary that every perfect flower will be a complete flower, but it is true that a complete flower will be a perfect flower, though no doubt about it. So Pisum sativum is a complete flower. Number two, it is cleistogamous. Now cleistogamous would be that it is a closed flower. So that means these accessory whorls actually completely cover them and the flower remains closed. And this is what happens in Pisum sativum. Now the implication of this is, so we have understood what the Pisum sativum flower looks like. Now let us look at the implications of what I am telling you. The implication is that in nature this flower is self-pollinated. It is self-pollinated. You can easily understand that if the flower is closed, then cross-pollination is actually not possible. So natural circumstances in nature, the plant will be self-pollinated, which means that the pollens of this particular flower will land on the stigma of this flower only. This is called as self-pollination. But you can achieve cross-pollination in them. So that means they can be cross-pollinated as well. But for that to happen, something must be done. And that something is that first you remove the accessory parts, obviously, expose the stamens and the carpel or the pistil. So you have exposed the reproductive part, and before maturity, you cut the anthers or you cut the male reproductive part. So please understand, I am again saying do it before maturity, because there is no point in cutting the stamens or the male reproductive part after maturity, because pollination might have already taken place. So that means you cut the male parts before maturity. Now if you cut them, that means I have removed the stamens here, I have removed the anther, etc., the male reproductive part before maturity. Now this part is the female reproductive part. So I have forcibly converted this flower from bisexual to a unisexual flower, and unisexual female flower, and a unisexual female flower would be called as pistillate. So you have done a process which is called as emasculation. Now this is an important question for your NEET entrance. So emasculation will be the removal of the anther before maturity. This thing is called as emasculation. What is the result of emasculation? You have converted a bisexual flower to a unisexual flower. Because you have removed the male reproductive organ, now it becomes a female flower. It is pistillate. Now very important point to understand is you cannot leave it open, because the pollens from other plants may actually get pollinated here, may land on the stigma. So you want only choice pollens to be deposited. The pollens that you want to pollinate this particular plant or fertilize this plant, that they are the only pollens that you want to come to the contact of this particular stigma. So that means you will cover with them a bag, and this process is called as bagging. So this process is called as bagging. So if you do emasculation and bagging, you can achieve what is called as cross-pollination. So remove the bag, put the choice pollens on the stigma, and again bag it. This is how you can achieve cross-pollination. So naturally it was actually self-pollinated, but what was possible, cross-pollination could be achieved. So these were some very, very important advantages of Pisum sativum. So let us recap here. So we are saying it is very easily available, very common plant. Number two, we are saying the lifespan is very short. We say that the characters chosen by Mendel had contrasting, easily identifiable traits, and then we say that we could achieve self-pollination crops as well as cross-pollinated progeny as well by the process of emasculation and bagging. So these were the advantages of Pisum sativum. So I hope you have understood. You must read the paragraph of the NCERT that I just now showed you, and you will be able to understand whatever is being said in the video, and that completes the discussion in this particular video. And in the next video we will start what is called as inheritance of one gene. Thank you so much.